Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a new episode of the Daily Debate. Tonight we'll be covering the very special visit by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to Egypt and President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi receiving the Saudi Crown Prince today, earlier in the day. And we will be starting with our top stories. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi received Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman at Cairo International Airport on Tuesday. Later, President el-Sisi and bin Salman held bilateral talks which covered bilateral ties, especially in the fields of trade, investment, energy, transport and tourism. President Sisi hailed deep and strategic ties binding the two brotherly nations amid ongoing threats facing the region. The head of state stressed the significance of continuing bilateral joint cooperation aimed at passing the current critical stage. President Sisi conveyed his greetings to Saudi King Salman bin Abdulaziz. Beside efforts to develop Egyptian-Saudi economic partnership and achieving joint interest at the political, economic and developmental levels, the two sides further reviewed a number of regional issues of mutual concern, including the Israeli war on the Gaza Strip and southern Lebanon. They agreed on the grave regional situation and the importance to reach an immediate ceasefire, as well as holding a Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital according to international law and legitimacy. The two sides called on respecting Lebanon's sovereignty, peace and stability. They also reviewed the situation in Sudan, Libya, Syria and the Red Sea. An expanded meeting was attended by Prime Minister Madbouli and members of the two delegations. At the end of their meeting, they witnessed the signing of the Egyptian-Saudi Supreme Coordination Council, which is headed by President el-Sisi and Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Welcome back, and on this topic we're delighted to be joined over the phone by Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Good evening, Mr. Ambassador. Ambassador Bayoumi, can you hear me, sir? Ambassador Bayoumi, can you hear me? Ambassador Bayoumi, how do you assess the political significance of the visit of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to Egypt at this timing in specific? We still can't reach our guest over the phone, and now we will move on to our next top stories. Minister of Foreign Affairs, Immigration and Expatriate Affairs Badr Abdelati held a phone call with the German Federal Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock to consult on regional issues of mutual concern in view of the rapid and grave escalation witnessed the region. During the call, Abdelati tackled the dire situation in the Gaza Strip, where he emphasized the priority of expediting ceasefire and unconditional access of humanitarian and relief aid with no impediments from the Israeli side. The top diplomat condemned Israel's announcement that it would confiscate the land on which the headquarters of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees is located in Jerusalem, and would transform its location into a new settlement outpost. Abdelati stressed the necessity of implementing ceasefire in Lebanon and endeavoring to de-escalate the situation in the region so as to prevent the region from sliding into a full-fledged war. He highlighted the importance of implementing the Security Council Resolution number 1701 by all parties with no selectivity. Welcome back, dear viewers, and still with our special coverage for the visit of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to Egypt. And earlier, President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi have received the Crown Prince. And on this topic, we're delighted to be joined over the phone once again with Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Good evening, Mr. Ambassador.
Good evening. How are you? Sorry for the disturbance.
It's okay, sir. Thank you for joining us. Well, Ambassador Bayoumi, how do you see the political significance of this visit by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and during this time specifically with the current war in Gaza and what's taking place in Lebanon?
Very important time, especially that the Arab countries are not in very good health. We have problems around us. Syria is not in good health, divided. 4 armies are occupying places in Syria. Lebanon is attacked by the Israelis. Libya is divided in 2 sections. Sudan is not better. Yemen, Somalia. Around us, the Arab world is really facing very serious trouble. So those who are still standing on strong feet, like Egypt or Arabia Saudi, the Gulf states, Algeria and Morocco, we have to discuss among us how we can help this situation of the Arab world. Also, we have problems, international problems with what's happening in Ukraine and the struggle between United States on one side and Russia and China and Japan with North Korea and so on. So all these matters around us, it should be discussed. Also, we have our very important bilateral relations with Arabia Saudi. Saudi Arabia is now one of the largest investors in Egypt. This is very good, but not good enough for me. I am greedy. I am from Damietta. I want more and more because Arabs are investing abroad much more than they are investing in their own countries. This means that we have homework to be done also in order to make the investor attracted to our market and to do whatever it needs in order to bring more and more investment for the sake of more production, more jobs for our young people who are seeking for working, and so on. So I am quite eager to hear what is happening, how they are discussing the matter, and I am quite sure that this meeting is very good for the sake of the Egyptian economy and for the Arabia Saudi and for the whole Arab world also.
For sure. Ambassador Bayoumi, with regards to what's taking place, the Israeli aggression on Gaza and what's taking place in southern Lebanon, we've seen the reaction of the international community with regards to this aggression. So how do you assess the importance of these 2 heavyweights, Egypt and Saudi Arabia, together, working together? How can they collaborate with regards to what's taking place in the region and with regards to the security of the region?
Very important, because as we said, the situation in the whole world is not very good. Also, we have a very complicated situation, whether in South Lebanon or in Gaza. And the double-face policy coming from United States or the NATO member states, it's annoying us. Once they are telling us that they are for the peace and to stop killing, same time they are helping Israel with weapons and with $14.5 billion cash in order to keep Israel fighting. And we have a government in Israel which is not at all in our favor. We cannot deal with a prime minister who is his own benefit. He is continuing this war because the other option of continuing the war is to go to jail, because he is requested for the justice in his own country. So it is very complicated, and it needs really, as you rightly said, a sort of discussion and to see between Egypt and the Arabia Saudi, which are the strongest 2 countries in the Arab world, in order to see how we can help this situation, whether directly to Gaza and the Palestinian people, or to cooperate in the international level, United Nations, or with our friends in Africa, in European Union, and so on. So I hope, and I am quite sure that they will succeed to make our life much better.
Well, I would like to thank you so much, Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former assistant to the Foreign Minister. Many thanks for your insights, sir. And dear viewers, now we'll check out this report and we'll be right back with our guest on the main topic of our episode today.
Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman arrived in Cairo on Tuesday, where he held talks with President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and senior state officials in a visit which witnesses the signing of several major investment and projects. President el-Sisi confirmed the profound brotherly and historical relations Egypt and Saudi Arabia have, as well as shared by their people. President el-Sisi emphasized the two countries' pivotal roles as cornerstones for stability in the region, notably in light of the growing challenges that demand their constant and intensive cooperation. The current visit by the Saudi Crown Prince underscores the vital importance of the joint cooperation and intensive coordination between Egypt and Saudi Arabia in the face of shared security challenges and threats emanating from the current developments in the region, notably in Palestine and Lebanon. The visit further comes as part of a broader effort to strengthen economic ties between the two countries. In September, the Saudi Crown Prince announced a $5 billion investment in Egypt by the Public Investment Fund during a meeting with the Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli in Riyadh. He also ordered the PIF to take this step as a first phase of new Saudi investment. Madbouli said at the time Egypt was working on finalizing the agreement on the protection of joint investments, which will contribute to increasing investments between the two countries, adding that a significant number of Egyptian investment companies operate in Saudi Arabia. Madbouli stressed Egypt and Saudi Arabia have strong investment partnerships that continue to achieve strong profitability for the two countries, noting that this partnership will be strengthened after signing the agreement to encourage and protect investment between the two countries. Egypt is currently drafting an investment plan to offer the Red Sea's Ras Banas for development similar to the Ras Al Hikma deal. This according to the Housing Minister Sharif al-Shirbini. Saudi Arabia said it may be interested in developing a stretch of the Red Sea coastline, having shown preliminary interest in Ras Gamila spot in southern Sinai. The two nations have historically maintained close ties rooted in a deep and mutual dependence. Egypt has consistently stood alongside Riyadh through every pivotal moment, while Saudi Arabia in turn has also offered unwavering support to Cairo through crisis and turbulent events. The steadfast partnership is an indisputable fact, evidenced by the enduring bond that dates back to the Treaty of Friendship in 1936.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and still with our coverage of the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's visit to Egypt. And we're delighted to be joined here at the studio by Dr Amr Hamed, economic consultant and professor of economics. Thank you for joining us, sir.
It's my pleasure.
Sir, how do you see the visit of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's significance of his visit, and specifically with regards to strengthening trade and economic ties?
To start, it's important to highlight the importance of the bilateral economic relations between Egypt and Saudi Arabia, because, as you know, Saudi Arabia is, if we look at the whole world, then Saudi Arabia would come maybe more or less like number 4 trading partner with Egypt after the States, China, the EU. The EU, I mean, combined all the European countries together, and then comes Saudi Arabia. So from a worldly perspective, it's number 4, but from a Middle East Arab country perspective, it is number 1. So it is the relationship between Egypt and Saudi Arabia in terms of exports and imports is very important for Egypt and for Saudi Arabia. We're speaking about a bilateral trade in the neighborhood of about $5 billion, $5 billion between the two countries. So
yes,
it's a significant amount.
Great. How do you assess some of the new projects like Ras Banas, for example? It's a new project and we're hearing a lot about it, which is one of the most beautiful areas in Egypt for tourism. How do you assess the project as a mega investment project?
Yeah, well, we can, if you want to speak about mega projects between Egypt and Saudi Arabia, we have the latest is the project in Ras Banas overlooking the Red Sea. And if we're going to speak about it, it's very important to emphasize the fact that the Red Sea, which is one of the most important seas in the whole world, not only in terms of its touristic attractions and magics, and no. What is even more important is that, as you know, the Red Sea is the most important maritime route in the whole world, because it connects actually, I wouldn't say only Asia with Europe, but the whole east of the sphere with the whole west of the sphere when it comes to international trade, because at the end of the day, yes, it goes through the Suez Canal. It's very true.
Indeed.
But the Suez Canal, it connects the Red Sea with the Mediterranean, and then it goes to Europe and to the West in general. So speaking about Ras Banas, yes, it's the latest project, more or less touristic project, which supposedly will be financed by Saudi investors on Egyptian lands in one of the most attractive maritime touristic attractions in not only in Egypt, but I would say in all Eastern Africa in general. But if you want to speak, if we are going to mention Ras Banas, it's important also to mention other projects with Saudi Arabia. Namely, the Saudis are also involved after the Emirates in the Ras Al Hikma project as well, especially in not the Ras Al Hikma, but in Alamein. Precisely, the Saudi investors are very much into our investments in Alamein. That's one point. The other point, which is even more important from my perspective than Ras Banas, is the interest of Saudis in Ras Jamila, which is in Sinai. It's very close to Sharm el-Sheikh and much closer to the airport of Sharm el-Sheikh. And it's Ras Jamila is a very important project also. It's overlooking the down tip top of Gulf of Aqaba. And what is very interesting about Ras Jamila is that it's one of the key points of linking Saudi Arabia to Egypt via a bridge. And one of the projects is to establish a bridge that will have basis in Tiran Island, Sanafir Island, and then Saudi Arabia, linking both countries, Saudi and Egypt, via a bridge similar, for example, to the bridge that links Saudi Arabia to Bahrain, for example. So the three projects together, Al Alamein, Ras Jamila, and now we're speaking about Ras Banas, together are going to strengthen, no doubt, the economic relationship between Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Putting aside, these are from a touristic perspective.
Yes.
But it's also very important to note that one of the major investors in the new administrative capital are the Saudi investors as well.
Sure. One of Egypt's most important objectives is to attract foreign investment. Now, how do you assess the availability of investment opportunities in different fields? Now, we talked about the different projects, mega projects in Ras Banas, in different areas in port tourism. Now, what about the availability of opportunities in Egypt in the fields of industry, in the field of agriculture, in the field of energy and renewable energy, technology transfer? What's your take on that?
That's another very important point, which is, as you rightly mentioned, what we call the FDI, the foreign direct investment. And foreign direct investment is very important for any emerging market. And I would assume that we all know that Egypt is more or less classified as an emerging. And from my perspective, a very promising emerging market. So FDI is very important, foreign direct investment. If you compare it to foreign indirect investment, because we cannot speak about foreign direct investment without speaking about foreign indirect investment. And yes, both of them are fine for an emerging and a growing economy. But there is a big difference between both, because foreign direct investment is something that is long-term and is here to stay. But foreign indirect investment, and its nickname, as I'm sure your audience know, the nickname of foreign indirect investment is what we call the hot money, which comes in and flows out maybe the next day. And this is something that, yes, okay, I don't mind having hot money, but we cannot rely on hot money in the long term. Of course, we can rely on FDI, on foreign in the long term, because it's not an easy entry, and also what is the advantage for the host country, which is in our case Egypt, is also difficult for the exit. So it's money that comes in, investment that comes in and stays for a long term. Let me here mention another very good example, which is the example of a country like Indonesia, which I think, from my perspective, our economists, our authorities that are interested in the growth of the economy, they should really study very closely what is happening now in Indonesia. Why? Because Indonesia at the moment is building on foreign direct investment, and they are not only happy with foreign direct investment, with attracting foreign investment that comes and stays in forms of buying assets, employing domestic population, importing infrastructure and know-how, which is very important to import the know-how and embed it in the country, in the host country, which is again Egypt in our case. No, what does Indonesia do? They say, no, we don't only want foreign direct investment, but we want something more, which is value added. Value added to the foreign direct investment means what? Means that we should not only do the projects here, but do much more. Try to produce the final products also in our country. The example of what we call downstream. So there is upstream and downstream. Downstream means I not only make or establish projects for foreign direct investment, but downstream the projects into much deeper industries. Let me give you the example to explain it to your audience, because I know that your audience are not maybe specialized. By downstream, I mean Indonesia is now has an edge in the production of nickel. But nickel now is becoming a very important material or metal, if you want, because it's very important now for the production of batteries that are used in the production of batteries that are needed for electric cars, which is becoming a new fashion throughout the whole world. So what does Indonesia do? No, we're not only going to produce nickel. Yes, nickel exists here, and we're going to mine it here and have FDI to produce it here, but we are not only satisfied with this, but we're going also to produce the batteries for the cars on our land. So this is what I call by downstream, and this creates, of course, value added and more employment for our citizens, and this is very important for Egypt to establish now. Yes, FDI is very good, but we should not only be satisfied with FDI, but what we want is the value added and the downstream that goes with the equation of FDI.
Indeed. Sir, at the end of an expanded meeting today between President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and visiting Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, they witnessed the signing of the Egyptian-Saudi Supreme Coordination Council, which is headed by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and Prince Mohammed bin Salman. How would you assess the significance of this council?
This council should put into perspective all the projects that we just explained more or less, and much more projects, especially in, for example, in the energy sector, which is very important for both countries. And it's also very important to stress the importance of the economic relationships between the two countries, and try somehow to, I wouldn't say put aside political interferences that we all know are taking place and are affecting the whole Middle East area and maybe the relationship between the two countries. But the question is, at the moment, who should be put in the front? The stallion, the horse, or the chart? It is very important that we put the horse in front of the chart, not in the back of the chart, because anyway it is not going to move if you put the horse in the back. And the horse is the economy, and the charts are the politics. So it's the idea now is that the authorities should realize that for this stage, for both countries, the horse, which is the economics, should be put in the front. And in this case, and this is the council actually. And the importance of this council is to make sure that the economy is going to draw the whole country, the two countries, to the front now. Because if we let the politics affect our economic decisions, then we might be in real trouble. So, and it's very important now that we make sure that this council is going to achieve this picture of the horse and the chart.
Indeed. We're going now to check out this report on Saudi-Egyptian bilateral relations, and we'll be right back.
Egypt and Saudi Arabia are linked by distinguished time-honored relations based on a long history of cooperation and coordination. Minister of Investment and Foreign Trade Hassan Al-Khatib highlighted a mutual desire and promising opportunities to double intra-trade and joint investments in the coming period. During his meeting with the Deputy Governor of the Saudi General Authority of Foreign Trade, Abdulaziz Al-Sakran, to discuss meetings of promoting economic cooperation between the two countries in various domains, Minister Khatib hailed efforts of Saudi officials, in particular Minister of Investment Khalid Al-Falih, in finalizing the bilateral investment protection agreement between Egypt and Saudi Arabia. For his part, he also conveyed greetings of the Saudi Minister of Commerce Majid Al-Qasabi to his Egyptian counterpart, emphasizing deeply rooted friendly ties between the two countries. He said trade relations have achieved unprecedented growth rates recently. Saudi official underscored the significance of the Egypt-Saudi Joint Committee in fostering integration and coordination in various spheres of mutual interest. The Egypt-Saudi Joint Committee is a successful model for joint committees in light of maintaining regular conventions for 18 years, along with playing a vital role in strengthening economic ties between the two countries. The recent strides towards bolstering cooperation align with the economic and investment policies implemented by the Egyptian government. Policies aim to attract Arab and foreign investments with positive signals to the business community, including a package of tax incentives designed to improve investor relations with the tax authority and stimulate business activity. The objective is to make investors feel valued, overcome tax-related obstacles, and ultimately enhance productivity and economic growth, thereby fostering a more robust macroeconomic structure reliant on production, export and foreign trade. Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli expressed a strong desire to enhance trade between the two nations and thanked Saudi Arabia for its valuable proposals to advance trade and investment relations. He highlighted Egypt's efforts to address issues faced by Saudi investors and emphasized the government's focus on attracting more investments, including through incentives like the Golden License. Egypt and Saudi Arabia share a strong bilateral relationship built on a long history of cooperation and coordination. The upcoming Egyptian-Saudi Investment Protection and Promotion Agreement is set to be completed and implemented within the next 2 months, which is a crucial step in ensuring stability and security for Saudi investments in Egypt. It will also be followed by the necessary legislative and regulatory procedures.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and still covering the story of the day. Earlier, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi have received the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on an official visit to Egypt. Both leaders have held an expanded meeting where they discussed several regional, international and regional issues, among which definitely was the ceasefire in Gaza and a two-state solution. They also discussed several economic and trade agreements. And still with my guest, Dr. Amr Hamed. Sir, talking about investment partnership between Egypt and Saudi Arabia, what would you like to tell us?
I would like maybe to highlight 2 points that maybe we did not touch during our first session today. Number one is the importance of external transfers to the Egyptian economy. By external transfers, I mean the transfers that come from the wages and salaries that Egyptians earn abroad. Egyptians living abroad, they earn and they transfer back to their families domestically in Egypt. And here comes a very important role for the bilateral relation between Egypt and Saudi Arabia, because when it comes to the Egyptians working abroad, Saudi Arabia is number one. With about, we're coming close, not yet, but we're coming close to 3 million Egyptians living and working in Saudi Arabia. And as you know, because it's a direct neighbor, yes, there is a Red Sea between us, but it's considered a direct neighbor to Egypt. So the access between Egypt and Saudi Arabia for those who work and live there is very easy. Yes. In less than 1 hour, you are in Jeddah, for example. In about 2 hours, you are in Riyadh, and so on. So this easy access makes it attractive for the Egyptians living in Saudi Arabia, to these 3 million Egyptians, to transfer their savings and investments back to their home country. What is very important here, because that part comes from Saudi to Egypt, and there are a lot of agreements that should facilitate this. But what we need to do domestically is how to attract and make sure that the Egyptians living in Saudi Arabia, 3 million, with a lot of savings, because it's a rich country and they make good money there. How can we make sure that they transfer it back to Egypt? They don't keep it in Saudi Arabia, with due respect, or they transfer it to other countries. Because an Egyptian living in Saudi Arabia, he has the choice of either transferring his savings back home, keep it in Saudi Arabia, or maybe transfer it to Europe, for example. So how can you make it attractive for him to bring it back here and invest it here? This has to do with a lot of changes that we need to apply to our internal banking rules and regulations. That this to attract, because the way I see it right now is the banking system in Egypt is not really attracting the investments of Egyptians living abroad. So this is a domestic challenge that we should tackle, and in this case we are going to succeed in attracting all these savings that come here. Part of these savings, as you know, go into real estate development in Egypt. But what is more important for me is to see that these savings, they go to the banks, to the Egyptian banks. And this means we need to apply a lot of adjustments, a lot of changes in the banking rules and laws, actually, the financial rules and regulations, to make sure that these funds come to the Egyptian banks. So this is the first point that I wanted to pinpoint, and that sheds light on the importance of Saudi Arabia for Egypt, and vice versa, of course. Because from the other side, Saudi investors, they love Egypt. It's very close to them. They have a lot of nostalgia about Egypt, and about the culture, and about the Egyptian movies, and about the music and the songs and all these things. And let's not forget that there are a lot of family ties between Egypt and Saudi Arabia. A lot of Saudis are married to Egyptians, for example. So all these things would help in attracting Saudi investors to Egypt. So now we're not only speaking about Egyptians living in Saudi should invest in Egypt? No. Or we try to attract them to invest in Egypt. Not only this, but how you can make sure also that the Saudis are putting more of their investments in Egypt, and not because of political reasons, and not because the government of Saudi Arabia is falling in love with us or is trying to save the economic situation in Egypt. No, no. We want, that's very good. This is very good, but it's not enough. I want the standard Saudi investor to come and invest in Egypt because he believes that Egypt is a safe haven for his investments. He should be undecided between putting his investments in Egypt or in Europe, for example.
And there are, I think, many new incentives provided to investors, like, for example, the golden license. What would you like to tell us about these incentives?
Well, we have some. They look like very attractive, but until now, it is not what I want to see. What I want to see is much more is what we're getting. Confidence. What is very important is to establish confidence in all these things. So we have the golden license, yes, but how many licenses did we get? Not much. So it's the question of the confidence, because if this is the only thing, because the Egyptian economy, from my standpoint, is a solid economy. We already have the infrastructure. We have the banking system.
Yeah, sure.
We have all the infrastructure. What is missing is only how to create the confidence.
How do you see the improvements of exchange rate stability and its impact on the investment in Egypt?
Okay, but before we go into this exchange rate stability, if you don't mind, let's go back and speak about the second point, because if you remember, we said there are 2 points.
Yes.
So we covered the first one, which is the transfers of the Egyptians living abroad and how to attract Saudi investment.
Yes.
That was point number one. So before we go into the foreign exchange, do you mind if we just cover the second point?
Go ahead, sir.
The second point is the importance of Egypt for the NEOM mega city, the NEOM project. It's a Saudi project, as you know. It's going to be the most, not one of, no,
the most important, the most upcoming
exactly, the most project, modern mega city in the whole world. And this is the challenge of the Crown Prince, that he's going to make NEOM is going to be #1 mega city in the whole world. And for the good luck, if I may say, of Egypt, it's overlooking Egypt. Because NEOM, as maybe your audience would know, is extended almost like a vertical line from the very tip top of Saudi Arabia, overlooking the Red Sea from the eastern side till almost north of Jeddah.
Yes.
So it's going to be like a straight line overlooking the Red Sea. It's all the city is on the Red Sea, and the other side is Egypt.
Yes.
So, and this also would connect to what we spoke earlier about the bridge that is going to connect. Hopefully this is going to succeed, this project, connecting Saudi Arabia with one base in Tehran, second base in Sanafar Island, third base in Saudi Arabia. And if you look at the map, you will find that the third base will come at the tip top, the northern tip top of NEOM.
Yes.
What does this mean? It means that there will be a lot of advantages for Egypt and for the Egyptians serving this NEOM mega project. So this was the second point. Going to your question, which is a very interesting...
Exchange rate stability.
Yeah, exchange rate stability, the way I see it is that at the moment, of course, few years ago, very few years ago, nobody expected what we have reached, which is the neighborhood of 48 pounds to the dollar, 50 to the euro, and so on. But anyway, it's a fact, and now we've been living in this fact for the last almost a year or so. The way I see it is that we can foresee some stability around this same rate of, let's say, 48, 47 to the dollar, 50 to the euro, and so on. Any economist cannot, practically speaking, within what's happening now in the world, he cannot, practically speaking, expect things for more than maximum 6 months. So for the 6 months ahead, stability as far as the foreign exchange rate will continue. That's how I see it. Yeah.
Great. In September, the Saudi Crown Prince announced a $5 billion investment in Egypt by the Public Investment Bank. What would you like to tell us about this investment opportunity?
Again, this is related to what we just spoke about, that we expect some more investment, Saudi investment to come. But as you just mentioned, these are government investments, because as you said, it's by the Crown Prince, which means it's a direct instruction from the Crown Prince that his government, he tells his minister, his cabinet, you have to invest $5 billion in Egypt. It will come to Egypt. I'll be very happy with this. We're satisfied with this. But again, where is the private investment? Where is the decision by a private Saudi entity that we love to invest in Egypt because from an economic standpoint it is attractive to us? It's as attractive as investing in, let me go to the extreme and tell you, in Switzerland or in the Caribbean.
Great.
We know how much investment, Saudi investments already are directed towards England, for example.
Yes. Well, sir, it has been
the idea is how to make sure that it comes to us and not goes somewhere else.
Definitely, for sure. Looking forward to more cooperation on all levels with our brotherly country, Saudi Arabia. I would like to thank you so much, Dr. Amr Hamed, economic consultant and professor of economics. Many thanks for your insight.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this edition of the Daily Debate. Many thanks for watching. This is Naveen Ramzi signing off.